I am 74 years old, and I believe I am finally at peace at the end of my life. It's an illusion I cherish every morning when I wake up in my home on Maple Street in Fayetteville, where I've lived for the past 46 years. Age brings wisdom, or at least that's what they say. For me, it's mostly brought wrinkles, joint pain, and the endless family dinners I make a habit of, though each one feels more and more like theater. I stand at the hallway mirror adjusting my pearl necklace, a gift from my late husband Alistair for our 20th anniversary. My fingers aren't as nimble as they used to be, the clasp stubborn. Finally, I manage it. My reflection is the face of a woman I sometimes struggle to recognize. Sometimes I think the real Rosemary Baxter is in the past, a shadow of her. Tonight is another family dinner. It's a tradition that started after Alistair died, my lifeline in a sea of loneliness. Every last Friday of the month, I wait for Percy, my only son, his wife Abigail, and my brother Woodrow. And each time, I inwardly prepare myself for a new battle. I return to the kitchen where the lamb stew, Percy's favorite dish since childhood, is slowly stewing. I stir with the wooden spoon that remembers my mother's touch. The familiar aroma of rosemary and thyme reminds me of a time when things were simpler. Percy has always been a complicated child, beautiful, gifted, and unbearably willful. I remember the day he turned 10. Alistair gave him a bicycle, not the most expensive, but a good one. We worked especially hard at that time, saving every penny. Percy looked at the present, curled his lips, and said that Benjamin Price had a better bicycle, and he would not ride that junk. That's when I first saw the disappointment in my husband's eyes, the same expression that began to appear more often as our son got older. I open the refrigerator and pull out an apple pie. The apples are sliced thin. Abigail doesn't like them too large. Always trying to please, I chuckle to myself, remembering the first time I met my son's wife. Abigail came into our lives 7 years ago. Beautiful, smiling, with wheat-colored hair and eyes that never fully smile. She works at an organic grocery store, although she is trained as a psychologist. Finding myself, she explained when we first met. At 32, I thought at the time, but kept silent. Percy fell in love instantly. 6 months later, they were married in the town hall, no formalities, as Abigail put it. No guests, no ceremony, just witnesses. Woodrow said to me then, "They're in too much of a hurry, Rosie. Something's not right here." My brother was always perceptive. Placing the cake on the table, I checked the time. The clock on the wall shows 6 p.m. "They'll be here soon." I sit down in the chair by the window, the same one Alistair liked to read the papers in. How many times I've watched his coffee cup frozen halfway to his mouth as he plunged into another article on international politics. Alistair died 12 years ago. A heart attack, quick and sudden. I remember Percy sobbing at the funeral, and I consoled him, though I was heartbroken myself. He was 31 at the time, just finishing a PhD in economics after years of flitting between departments. Alistair and I paid for his every academic whim, believing that education was the best investment. After the funeral, Percy returned to his life in Chicago, where he got a job as an analyst. Calling once a month, he came for Thanksgiving. When he announced after 5 years that he was moving back to Fayetteville, I was surprised. "It's a more measured pace of life here, Mom," he explained. I later learned that he had been fired for a conflict with management. Woodrow said at the time, "He's here for your money, Rosie." My brother always spoke bluntly, sometimes too bluntly. 4 years younger than me, he nevertheless always felt like my protector. Even as a child, when a neighbor boy yanked my braid, Woodrow, who was only 6, lunged at him with his fists. Not much has changed since then. After Alistair died, he started visiting me every week, checking the plumbing, changing light bulbs, going over the bills. Woodrow never married. "Never met anyone better than my sister," he joked, though I knew that after returning from the Vietnam War, he just couldn't trust anyone. Woodrow worked as an engineer in a radio electronics factory, recently retired, and now enjoys wood carving. His little wooden figures are the only decorations in my house that I truly cherish. The doorbell interrupts my musings. Woodrow is always the first to arrive, punctual to the minute. I open the door and see his familiar stocky figure. Plaid shirt, worn jeans, gray hair neatly combed back. "Rosie," he kisses my cheek, holding out a bottle of red wine. How are your knees today? Creaky as an old floorboard, I answer with a smile. But Dr. Patterson says it's normal for my age. Woodrow walks into the kitchen, habitually opening the corkscrew drawer. Did Percy call? He asks, deftly uncorking the bottle. No, but they're never late when it comes to dinner. Woodrow hums, refilling his glasses. Is Abigail coming tonight too? His voice is neutral, but I know he can't stand my sister-in-law. Of course he does. They always come together. My brother nods, taking a sip of wine. I notice him looking around the kitchen. His gaze slides to the new coffee maker. Another gift from a caring son? He asks, nodding at the shiny chrome machine. Percy says the old one was dangerous. Maybe it was. And how much did that safety cost? Woodrow always sees through my relationship with Percy. He didn't say. I turn away, stirring the stew. And I didn't ask. The doorbell rings again. Woodrow goes to open it, and I inhale deeply, preparing myself. Percy and Abigail enter like actors on stage. My son, tall and slender, with hair touched with gray at the temples, is a replica of Alistair in his youth. Abigail is beside me, elegant in a simple gray dress, wearing the pearl earrings I gave her last Christmas. Mom, Percy puts his arm around me, and I can smell the expensive cologne. You look beautiful. Hello, darling. Abigail kisses the air near my cheek. What a delightful scent. You've outdone yourself again. Strained smiles, memorized compliments are our usual ritual. Woodrow stands aside, watching the scene with undisguised skepticism. Hello, Uncle Woodrow. Percy holds out his hand. My brother shakes it with a delay, nodding to Abigail as well. How is your new business? He asks. Investment counseling, right? Percy tenses slightly. His latest venture is another in a string of failed career experiments. It's growing, the client base is growing, he replies with a strained smile. Percy works so hard, Abigail stepped in, stroking her husband's hand. Sometimes I hardly see him. I invite everyone to the table, setting down plates of stew. The usual small talk begins. The weather, the city news, the latest movies. I notice that Abigail is especially attentive to me today, asking about my health and whether I need help around the house. Mom's stubborn, Percy says, winking at me. Never asks for help, even if she has to. Your mom has always been independent, Woodrow replies. Unlike some people, the tension builds. I hurry to change the subject, asking Abigail about her work. She talks about the new organic products, about the management's plans to expand the range. I listen half-heartedly, remembering how Percy had asked me for a loan a year ago, for business development. $20,000, a substantial sum from my savings, which I'd been saving all my life, working as an accountant for a construction company. I gave him the money, even though Woodrow was adamantly opposed. I haven't seen the money or an account of its use since. And how's your wood carving, Woodrow? Abigail asked, turning to my brother. It helps pass the time, he answers dryly. I know it's more than a hobby for him. It's a way to cope with the memories of the war that still haunt his dreams. Woodrow makes marvelous figurines, I say. Last week he gave me a little woodpecker so realistic it looks like it's about to tap its beak. You should sell them, Uncle, Percy says. They pay good money for handwork these days. I could help with marketing. Woodrow looks at his nephew with a hard look. I don't make them to sell. Abigail cleverly changes the subject, talking about a new restaurant that has opened downtown. I serve the apple pie, noticing my son cast a quick glance at my wife, as if looking for confirmation of something. Abigail nods faintly. Mom, Percy sets his fork aside. We wanted to talk to you about the house. I tense up. My house is the last thing that ties me to Alistair, to our life together. What house? Yours, of course. Percy smiles, but his eyes remain serious. It's too big for you alone. All those stairs tending the garden. Abigail and I think you should consider smaller options. Maybe an apartment in that new senior complex. Woodrow abruptly sets the coffee mug on the table. Your mother is doing just fine in that house, he says, not hiding his irritation. And she's not elderly, she's experienced. Uncle Woodrow, we're just taking care of Mom, Abigail interjects. Accidents often happen to people her age. And what do you propose to do with the house? Woodrow asks, looking directly at Percy. My son clears his throat. It could be sold. Real estate in this neighborhood is going for a premium right now. The proceeds would go toward making mom comfortable in her new place, and the rest, well, you could invest it. Through your consulting firm, I assume. Woodrow doesn't hide his sarcasm. That would make sense, Percy shrugged. I'm a professional in this field. I stare at my pie, which has suddenly lost its flavor. This house remembers Percy's birth, the first steps, the tears of joy and grief. Alistair died here, right in his chair by the window with a book in his lap. How can I leave all these memories behind? I'll think about it, I say quietly, avoiding his gaze. Woodrow squeezes my hand under the table. I feel his support, as I always do in difficult moments. The conversation turns to other topics, but the atmosphere remains tense. After dessert, Abigail helps me with the dishes, unaccustomed to being obliging. She asks about my medications, my doctor's appointments. You're so strong, Rosemary, she says, wiping my plate. At your age, living on your own, running a household, not everyone can handle it. My mother lived to be 92, cooking and shopping on her own, I said. I hope I'm like her. Abigail smiles, but her eyes remain cold. Of course you did. But these days there are so many options for a comfortable retirement life. Why turn down help when it's available? In the living room, Percy and Woodrow are talking in muffled voices. When we return, both are silent. I sense that they have been discussing me. The evening comes to an end. Percy and Abigail are getting ready to leave. My son hugs me goodbye. Think about what I said, Mom, he whispers in my ear. It's for your own good. Abigail kisses my cheek, leaving me smelling of expensive perfume. Until next Friday, dear Rosemary. Call me if you need anything. Woodrow sees them off with a cold nod. When the door closes, he turns to me. Don't sell the house, Rosie, he says firmly. They just want your money. Percy takes care of me, I object, though I don't believe what I'm saying. Woodrow shakes his head and starts to gather his things. He lingers in the doorway as he leaves. I'll come back tomorrow and check the roof. They promised rain. I nod gratefully. When Woodrow leaves, the house falls into silence. I walk back into the kitchen, where the aromas of family dinner still linger. I open the cupboard and take out the box where I keep all my important documents. Among them is the will made after Alistair's death. All our possessions, house, savings, stocks, I left to Percy. I'm putting the documents aside. Maybe Woodrow's right. Maybe I should reconsider some decisions. My gaze falls on the picture on the refrigerator, Percy in his graduation robe, diploma in hand. I was so proud of him then. When did things change? When did my little boy turn into a man who only sees me as a source of money? I turn off the kitchen light and slowly walk up the stairs to my bedroom. Tomorrow will be a new day. And maybe it's time to make new decisions. I wake up with the first rays of the sun, a habit I can't get rid of even years after retirement. When I was young, I always envied people who could sleep until noon. Now I realize that rising early is not a disadvantage, but an extra hour of life, which I have less and less of. Today is the last Friday of the month. It's family dinner day. I usually start getting ready first thing in the morning, but now I'm procrastinating for some reason. I sit in a chair by the window, warming my palms against my mug of tea and looking at the garden. The daffodils are gone, but the rose bushes that Alistair and I planted the year Percy was born are budding. 43 years old, these roses are almost as old as my son. The phone ringing brings me out of my reverie. Abigail, her voice sounds unusually tense. Rosemary, good morning. I hope I didn't wake you. I'm up at the crack of dawn, darling. Is something the matter? Oh, no, she replies quickly. I just wanted to see if there was anything I needed to buy for dinner. Percy mentioned that you were planning on making lasagna. I raise my eyebrows in surprise. Lasagna was last month. Tonight it's going to be baked salmon, I reply. And I've already bought everything. Salmon, of course, Abigail exclaims with a nervous chuckle. My memory's a little fuzzy. And for dessert? Chocolate cake, I say, though I was planning on apple pie. I want to see if she's really that interested in the menu or if it's just an excuse to call. Great. Her enthusiasm seems fake. Percy and I will bring the wine. Is red okay? White would go better with the salmon, I said. Of course. What am I doing again? White, of course. See you tonight, darling. Abigail hangs up before I can say goodbye. Strange call. In the 7 years she's been married to Percy, I don't remember her asking about the menu the night before. I put the mug down and go into the kitchen. I'll have to change plans and bake a chocolate cake. I don't want Abigail to catch me in a lie. As I pull out the ingredients, I continue to ponder the phone call. Maybe she and Percy have decided to break some news. There's another call, this time from Woodrow. Rosie, are you all right? His brother's voice sounded concerned. What could possibly be wrong? I wonder. I don't know. He pauses. I just felt like I needed to call. Woodrow was always like that, intuitive, sensing from a distance when something was wrong. Everything's fine, I reply. Abigail just called asking about the menu. Weird, huh? What's weird? I mean, she's always showing fake concern. There was something different about her voice this time. I knead the cake batter, holding the phone against my shoulder. Like she was nervous. Woodrow hesitates. Did Percy go into debt again? You always think the worst of Percy. And I'm almost always right, his brother retorted. Have you forgotten how he sold Alistair's car right after the funeral? I sigh. This old conversation repeats itself year after year. Yes, Percy isn't perfect, but he's my son. I'll be there early, Woodrow says. I'll help with the preparations. 5 o'clock? I ask. 5 o'clock. The day passes in the usual routine. I bake the cake, marinate the salmon, wipe down the silverware I only get for family dinners. I put on a Frank Sinatra record, Alistair's and my favorite. At 5 o'clock sharp, the bell rings. Woodrow is punctual as always. He enters with a bouquet of wildflowers and a bottle of white wine. You look tired, he says, kissing me on the cheek. Baking a cake, I reply, accepting the flowers. Chocolate, like Abigail said. Woodrow frowns. That's odd. You always say she prefers fruit desserts. Chocolate is too caloric for my figure. He imitates Abigail's mannered voice. Exactly, I place the flowers in the vase. Something's not right here. My brother walks to the kitchen, opens the refrigerator, and pulls out a mineral water. Have you checked your account lately? I turn around. Why? It's fine. You sure? Woodrow looks serious. Of course, I answer, but I feel uneasy. My pension comes in on time, I pay my bills through the bank. When was the last time you went online banking? I wonder. Passwords, those endless combinations of numbers and letters, always slip my mind. It's been a while, maybe a month ago. Woodrow frowns even harder. Rosie, give me access to your account. I want to check something. Now? I wonder. Percy and Abigail will be here soon. That's why now, he insists. I pull out the notebook I keep in the drawer where I keep all the passwords. Woodrow shakes his head. He's always scolding me for writing them down, but how else would I remember them? He sits down at my computer, entering the data. His face grows more and more tense. What is it? I ask him as I come closer. Strange transactions, he answers quietly. Lots of small transfers from your card to an account I don't recognize. I look over his shoulder. I haven't made any transfers lately. Woodrow turns to me. Who else has access to your card? I pull back, feeling the color rush to my cheeks. Percy, I answer quietly. I gave it to him in case I needed to buy something for the house when I wasn't here. Woodrow closes his eyes as if trying to hold back anger. How much is it supposed to be right now? He asks. In the savings account? About $250,000, I answer. That's Alistair and me, plus the money from the sale of his stamp collection. Woodrow turns the screen toward me. 127,000, Rosie. I feel the ground slipping from under my feet. I sit back in my chair, trying to make sense of what I've heard. It can't be. There must be some mistake. There's no mistake, Woodrow points to the screen. These are all the transactions. For the last 6 months, almost every day. $500, then $1,000. All to the same account. Maybe hackers? I'm grasping at that thought like it's a lifeline. They said on TV that there are a lot of scammers on the internet these days. Woodrow shakes his head. To withdraw that kind of money, you need physical access to the card or its data, and constant judging by the transactions. I think back to my recent conversation with Percy about selling the house. Now his insistence takes on a new meaning. What do? I ask, feeling helpless. Nothing yet. Woodrow closes the laptop. Tonight we're going to observe. Don't give the appearance of knowing anything. He doesn't have time to say more. The doorbell rings. Percy and Abigail arrive exactly at 6, as always. I open the door, trying to smile as usual. Percy kisses my cheek, holding out a bottle of white wine. "Hi, Mom," he says cheerfully. "How are you today?" "Fine, darling," I reply, looking him over. A new expensive suit, gold cufflinks. I gave them to Alistair for our 25th anniversary. Abigail hugs me, leaving a trail of perfume in the air that I recognize Chanel, an expensive gift for her birthday last year. "Rosemary, you look tired," she says with deliberate concern. "Maybe I should have ordered dinner at a restaurant." "Cooking calms me down," I reply as I lead them into the dining room. Woodrow is already there, pouring wine. His face is impenetrable, but I know he's seething with anger inside. "Uncle Woodrow!" Percy exclaims with feigned enthusiasm. "How are your wooden figures?" "They're not complaining," my brother replies dryly. "And how is your business?" "It's thriving." Percy adjusts his tie. "You know, the investment market is booming, isn't it?" Woodrow raises an eyebrow. "And what kind of investments are making such a return?" Percy pales slightly. "All sorts of things. Stocks, bonds, some startups." "Interesting." My brother pauses. "I'm just thinking about where to invest my savings. Maybe you can recommend specific companies?" Abigail casts a quick glance at her husband, then turns to me. "Rosemary, I still haven't seen your new set you were talking about last time." I look at her in surprise. "I don't have a new set." "The one with the gold rim?" she adds, seeing my confusion. "You said you got it on sale." "Oh, that one." I play along, realizing she's trying to change the subject. "It's in the sideboard. I'll show you after dinner." We're sitting at a table covered with my best tablecloth, the one with the embroidered lilies that I only use for special occasions. The silverware gleams in the candlelight. Everyone pretends it's an ordinary family dinner, though the air is so tense you could cut it with a knife. Percy is on his third glass of wine. Abigail has barely touched hers. She never drinks much, always in control. Woodrow watches them silently, occasionally throwing me a look of concern. I rise to collect the empty salmon plates. "Leave it, Mom." Percy stops me with a gesture. "Abigail will help." "I can do the dishes myself," I object, but my sister-in-law is already up, picking up the plates. "Of course, Rosemary, but let me help." Her smile is tight as a string. They leave for the kitchen, and Woodrow and I stay at the table. My brother leans over to me. "Are you okay?" I nod, though I feel far from okay. The discovery of the missing money has turned my world upside down. Could my own son, my own flesh and blood, have done this to me? I think back to holding him in my arms as a newborn, teaching him to walk, how proud I was of his first successes in school. Where is the tenderness he showed as a child? When did everything change? Abigail and Percy return from the kitchen. My sister-in-law is carrying the chocolate cake I baked following her unexpected wish. Percy holds a fresh bottle of wine, already uncorked. "Who needs a refill?" he asks, lifting the bottle. "I've had enough," Woodrow answers dryly. "Mom?" I shake my head. "I need clarity of mind tonight." Percy fills his glass, takes a big swig, and sets it on the table with excessive force, so that the wine almost spills over the edge. "So," he looks at me with a strange determination, "we're a family, aren't we, Mom?" "Of course, darling." I try to smile, but I can feel the muscles in my face tensing into an unnatural grimace. "And it's a family tradition to share, right?" he continues, leaning forward. "Help each other out, especially when one has something the other needs." Woodrow straightens, his gaze sharp. "What's your point, Percy?" he asks bluntly. My son ignores him, not taking his eyes off me. "Mother, remember how you always said you'd leave me your entire inheritance, that you wanted me to be provided for?" "Yes." I can feel my mouth drying up. "When the time comes." Percy lets out a short laugh that sounds unnatural and harsh. Time. Sometimes it's better not to wait. Take what's due you while you can use it." Abigail puts a hand on his shoulder as if trying to warn him, but he shakes it off. "I'm fine, darling," he says, though his eyes glisten feverishly. "I just want to be honest with Mom. A family should be honest with each other, shouldn't they?" "Percy!" Abigail's voice sounds strained. "Maybe not now?" "When?" He turns to her. When it's all going to unravel on its own? When it's too late? He turns to me again, his smile growing wider but not reaching his eyes. Mom, there's something I have to tell you. He pauses as if gathering his thoughts. Remember that account you set up for me in case of emergencies? The one with your savings card? I nod silently, feeling my heart start to beat faster. Well, Percy takes another sip of wine and suddenly bursts into laughter. I gave all your money to my wife. There's dead silence in the room. I stare at my son, unable to believe he actually said that. So openly, so shameless. As if it were a joke to be laughed at over dinner. What? My voice is barely audible. Percy continues to laugh, but his laughter sounds increasingly nervous, almost hysterical. Well, not quite all of it, of course, just some of it, but a serious part, over 100,000 to be exact. Abigail stiffens, her face whiter than chalk. She looks at her husband as if seeing him for the first time. Percy, she says through gritted teeth. Shut up. Why? He spreads his hands. Mom doesn't use that money anyway. It's just sitting in the account. And we need it. Don't we, honey? I can feel the nausea coming up in my throat. My ears are ringing. Is he really admitting to stealing right now at this table? You stole your mother's money? Woodrow pronounces each word clearly, spaced out, as if he wants to make sure everyone understands the gravity of the situation. Stole is such a harsh word, Uncle. Percy wrinkles his nose. I prefer to think I just borrowed it. A little earlier than planned. Without permission? I finally find my voice. Without my knowledge? Oh, Mom. Percy leans across the table to me. You would have given them to me anyway, sooner or later. I just, expedited the process. His eyes glisten, but not from tears, but from some strange, almost manic excitement. I don't recognize my son in this moment. Who is this man? What has happened to my boy? How long? I ask, barely able to control the trembling in my voice. About 6 months, he answers, shrugging his shoulders like he's talking about the weather. Started small. 500 here, 1,000 there. You didn't even notice. Because I trusted you. I feel something inside me snap. Because you're my son. Percy waves me away. Come on, Mom, don't be so dramatic. Money is just money. You got plenty. And if you don't, you can always sell the house. Just like we talked about. Suddenly, Woodrow stands up. Slowly, heavily. His chair slides back with a clatter. There's an expression on his face that I haven't seen since Alistair's funeral. A mixture of deep sadness and restrained rage. You shouldn't have done that, he says quietly. But there's such force in that quietness that even Percy is silent. My brother leaves the room and there is silence for a moment. Then Percy tries to laugh, but it comes out a nervous chuckle. What's wrong with him? I was only joking. It's not a joke, I say, tears welling up in my eyes. You stole money from me, Percy. From your own mother. I didn't steal anything. He's suddenly serious, even aggressive. You would have given it to me if I'd asked for it. Then why didn't you? I look him straight in the eye. Why go behind my back? Abigail intervenes, her voice sounding falsely soothing. Rosemary, this is a misunderstanding. Percy didn't mean she doesn't have time to finish. Woodrow returns holding a dark blue folder. I've never seen this folder before. He puts it on the desk and opens it. Misunderstanding? He says, looking at Abigail. That's what I call a misunderstanding. He pulls several sheets of paper out of the folder and spreads them out in front of us. I see my bank statements, screenshots of transactions, copies of checks, and something else. Some documents with my signature on them that I don't remember signing. What's this? I ask, taking one of the sheets. Evidence, Woodrow replies. I've been following your finances for the past few months, Rosie. After I noticed the first unexplained withdrawals, Percy stands up abruptly, his face contorted with anger. You've been spying on me? On you? Woodrow raises an eyebrow. No, I was keeping an eye on my sister. The fact that your machinations were exposed in the process is what happened. He points to one of the documents. Right here, Rosie. Signed power of attorney to manage your finances. That's your signature? I look at the document carefully. It looks like mine, but something's wrong. I've never put the stroke exactly like that. No, I answer confidently. I didn't sign it. Of course you did, Mom, Percy says quickly. I just forgot. That's normal at your age. Don't try to make your mother look crazy, Woodrow almost growls. She's sane and of sound mind. He pulls out another document. And here's an application for regular transfers of funds to the Bucksville Investments account. Sound familiar? Bucksville to Baxter, just to make it easier to remember, right, Percy? My son pales, his self-confidence beginning to crack. This is my investment company. It's legit. Legit? Woodrow shakes his head. And forging your mother's signature is legal? He turns to Abigail, who sits frozen like a statue. And you were both in on it. I found drafts of these documents on your home computer. Yeah, I did a little research. You had no right. Percy's almost screaming. This is an invasion of privacy. And stealing money from your own mother is okay? Woodrow remains calm, which makes him even more intimidating. You know what else I found? A record of plans for that money. A house in Miami, a yacht, a private school for kids you don't even have. Abigail sobs suddenly, covering her face with her hands. I'm pregnant, she says through her tears. 4 months. We wanted to create a better future for our child. I feel the room begin to spin. My son stole my money. My daughter-in-law is pregnant, but they didn't see fit to let me know. Instead, they planned a luxurious life with the money they stole from me. Are you, pregnant? I stare at Abigail, unable to believe it. And you didn't tell me? We wanted it to be a surprise, Percy replies quickly. At Christmas, when everything is arranged. When you lure the rest of the money out of her and sell the house? Woodrow puts his hand on my shoulder as if to protect me. I found those plans too. Preliminary appraisal papers, correspondence with realtors. Percy and Abigail exchange glances, the panic of cornered animals in their eyes. It's not what you think, Uncle. Percy tries to regain his composure. We were just studying the market so that in the future, no more lies. Woodrow slams his fist on the table so that the dishes bounce. You've been stealing from Rosie on a regular basis, forging her signature, transferring money into your accounts, preparing to sell the house she loves, where her whole life with Alistair has been spent. He leans over to Percy, their faces a few centimeters apart. And you have the nerve to sit here, at her table, eating the food she cooked and laughing at the fact that you stole from your own mother? Percy recoils, his self-confidence finally fading. Yeah, I was going to return the money, he says, but his voice sounds unconvincing even to himself. When? Woodrow asks. After you've spent it all on the house and the yacht? I stare at my son, trying to find something of the boy I raised. Any sign of remorse, regret, but all I see is fear of being caught. Percy, I say quietly. Why? He lowers his eyes, unable to meet my gaze. We wanted a better life, the kind we deserve. At your mother's expense? Woodrow shakes his head. Your father would be rolling over in his grave. Abigail stands up suddenly, her face wet with tears. It was my idea, she says, and Percy looks at her in surprise. I pushed him. I wanted all the things my girlfriends have. Houses, cars, traveling. I was tired of being poor, tired of working at that stupid organic store. Abigail. Percy tries to stop her, but she continues. I've seen Rosemary's bank statements. All that money just lying there. Money she's never going to spend. And I thought, why not take it now? Why wait till she's dead? I can feel the blood draining from my face. My sister-in-law, the woman I took into the family, has been planning my inheritance while I'm still alive. Abigail, shut up! Percy grabs her arm, but she pulls away. No! I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of smiling and pretending I like these family dinners, these conversations about the past. She turns to me, her eyes burning with a feverish glint. You have no idea what it's like to live with the feeling that your future depends on when the old woman dies. There is a deafening silence in the room. I can feel my heart shattering into 1,000 shards. Not just from the fact that they stole my money, but from the ease with which they discussed my death, planned their lives around my money while I was still alive. Percy stands, shocked by his wife's outburst. He opens his mouth to say something, but finds no words. Woodrow pulls another document out of a folder and places it in front of me. This is the police report I prepared. All the evidence of fraud, forgery, theft. It's up to you, Rosie. But know that I'll be with you no matter what you decide. I look at the document at the names of my son and his wife clearly printed at the top of the page. The fraud charges that could send them to prison. Mom, Percy finally finds his voice. He drops to his knees next to my chair, grabs my hand. Mom, please, it was a mistake. Yeah, we didn't mean to hurt you. I look into his eyes, searching for a bit of sincerity. But all I see is fear of punishment. You didn't just steal my money, Percy, I say, releasing my hand. You stole my trust. Abigail stands against the wall, her arms wrapped around herself. Her mask has finally come off, revealing her true nature. What are you going to do? She asks through her tears. Are you going to send the father of your child to prison? Don't you dare! Woodrow takes a step toward her. Don't you dare use an unborn child as a bargaining chip. I'm sitting here, stunned by what's happening. My world is crumbling before my eyes. The family I love so much has become strangers. The son I raised has turned out to be a thief. The daughter-in-law I accepted with an open heart was waiting for me to die. Percy and Abigail froze, paralyzed by the shock of exposure. Their plan had fallen apart, their lies exposed. They stare at me, waiting for the decision that will determine their fate. And I sit there, tears streaming down my cheeks, unable to believe that this is really happening. That at my own table in my own home, my son confessed to stealing and then was exposed so completely and ruthlessly. The silence becomes unbearable. No one moves, no one speaks. It is as if time has stopped, frozen at this point of no return. The silence that hangs in the dining room after the unmasking seems tangible. I can feel its weight on my shoulders, hear it ringing in my ears. Time stretches like rubber, and each second lasts an eternity. Percy is still kneeling next to my chair, his face contorted with a mixture of fear and pleading. Abigail is frozen against the wall, wrapping her arms around herself as if protecting herself from an invisible cold. Woodrow is the only one who remains calm, his hand still on my shoulder, warm and supportive. Rosie, my brother finally says, breaking the daze. You need to rest. Let's go into the living room. He helps me up. My legs feel woozy, unsteady. Percy makes a motion as if he wants to support me from the other side, but backs away under Woodrow's heavy gaze. Mom! My son's voice sounds broken. Mom, please, let's talk. I don't answer. I can't. The words stick in my throat, turning into a lump of pain that's impossible to swallow. Woodrow leads me into the living room, sits me in my favorite chair by the window, the same one where Alistair liked to read. I'll make you some tea, his brother says, and his voice sounds unusually soft, almost gentle. He walks out into the kitchen, leaving the door ajar so he can see me. Percy and Abigail remain in the dining room, their voices muffled, but I can't make out the words. Are they arguing, blaming each other, or discussing how to get out of the situation? I don't care anymore. I look out the window at my garden, at the roses that are beginning to bloom. How many springs have I welcomed into this house? How many times have I watched the flowers come alive after winter? All this time, it seemed like I had something permanent in this world. My family. Now that illusion is shattered. Woodrow returns with a cup of tea to which he has added honey and lemon, just the way I like it. He sits down across from me, looking at me anxiously. How are you? He asks simply. I don't know, I answer honestly. I don't feel anything. It's like I'm numb. Woodrow nods, understanding. He's always understood me better than anyone. Shock. That's normal. It'll hurt more tomorrow. How long have you known? I ask, taking a sip of hot tea. I've suspected for months, Woodrow answers, clenching his hands into fists. Knew for sure for the last 3 weeks. And you didn't tell me? Wanted to be sure. Gather all the evidence. He looks me straight in the eye. And I knew it would break your heart. Wanted to keep it safe for as long as possible. I nod. It's so much like my brother to protect me, even when I don't know I need protecting. How did you figure it out? Woodrow shrugs, but I can tell he's uncomfortable. Remember back in March when you asked me to help you with your tax returns? I noticed some odd transactions, small amounts but regular. At first I thought it was some kind of mistake or an autopay you forgot to cancel. He gets up, goes to the window, looks out at the garden as if gathering his thoughts. Then he sees Percy's new watch. Do you remember when he came to see you in April at Easter? Showed you his new Rolex? Yes, I said. Said it was a bonus from work. Woodrow snorts. A bonus from a company on the verge of bankruptcy. I checked, Rosie. His firm only exists on paper. No office, no employees, just incorporation and a bank account. Percy appears in the living room doorway. His face is pale, his eyes red. Has he been crying, or is it the effect of the alcohol? Mom? He takes a step forward. Mom, let me explain. Woodrow steps between us, his posture protective. You'd better leave, Percy. This isn't your house, Uncle, my son snaps back. I want to talk to my mother. Suddenly, something inside me erupts. The numbness is replaced by a wave of anger so strong I'm surprised at its intensity. Speak, I say, and my voice sounds unexpectedly firm. What do you want to tell me, Percy? How do you justify stealing from your own mother? He takes another step forward, holding out his hands pleadingly. It wasn't stealing, Mother. I was going to return the money, I swear it. When? I look him straight in the eye. And how? With what funds? Percy hesitates, his confidence melting before his eyes. I have a plan, an investment that would pay off. I was going to pay it all back with interest. Woodrow lets out a short laugh, full of contempt. The very investments you spent the stolen money on? The house in Miami, a yacht, a private school for a kid you didn't even bother to tell your mother about? Percy gives him a hateful look. You've always hated me, always thought I was unworthy, ever since you were a child. It wasn't you I hated? Woodrow shakes his head. I hated the way you used your parents' love, the way you took their sacrifices for granted, how you manipulated their feelings. He turns to me. Remember when he was 16? He wrecked the car you and Alistair bought for your anniversary, wrecked it because he was driving drunk with his friends. And then he cried and said he'd nearly killed himself so you wouldn't punish him. And what did you do? You bought him a new car for the next year. I think back to that night. The call from the police, the chilling horror at the thought that something might have happened to Percy, the relief when I found out he was safe, and then, yes, Alistair and I were so glad he was alive that we forgave everything, not even punished. You've always been against me, Uncle, Percy almost shouts. Always antagonizing my parents. I was trying to open their eyes. Woodrow remains calm, showing them that their unconditional love creates a monster. Enough! I rise from my chair. Stop it, both of you. They fall silent, looking at me in surprise, probably not expecting such firmness in my voice. Percy, I say to my son, I want to know the whole truth. Exactly how much money did you take? What did you spend it on? And what were you going to do next? He lowered his eyes, unable to bear my gaze. $123,400, he says quietly. In the last 6 months. On what? I insist. Down payment on a house in Miami, he says even quieter. A new car for Abigail. A watch, clothes, a trip to the Maldives in February. The Maldives? I feel a new wave of pain coming over me. You told me you were going to a business conference in Chicago. I didn't want to upset you. He tries to justify himself. I knew you wouldn't approve of that kind of spending. Wouldn't approve of spending my own money? I almost laugh at the absurdity of the situation. You're right, Percy. I won't approve. Abigail appears at the door. Her eyes are swollen with tears, but her face expresses anger rather than remorse. We thought we deserved better, she says defiantly. After all the years of struggle, after all the Percy failures, all we wanted was what all our friends had. At the expense of ripping off an old woman? Woodrow takes a step toward her and she backs away. At the expense of betraying the mother of your child? I flinch at the mention of a child. My grandson or granddaughter, whom I may never see after tonight. How many months? I ask Abigail. 4, she answers, placing her hand on her stomach absent-mindedly. And you were going to tell me? Or would I find out about the birth of a grandchild from a casual conversation? Abigail glances at Percy, looking for support. We wanted to wait for a better time, she says finally. When I signed the papers to sell the house, I shake my head. Or when I signed the new will, leaving you everything, every last dime? Mom! Percy looks genuinely shocked. We never. Don't lie, Woodrow interrupts him. I found a draft of a new will on your computer, with legal language that renders Rosie incapacitated and transfers the administration of all her assets to you. I can feel the ground slipping from under my feet. They didn't just steal the money, they planned to take everything away from me, my home, my independence, my dignity. Get out, I say, surprised at the calmness in my voice. Get out of my house, now. Percy looks at me with desperation. Mom, please, we can fix this. How? I look him straight in the eye. How do you fix the fact that you betrayed me, that you planned to declare me incompetent, that you lied to my face for months? I'll pay you back. He sounds almost like a kid promising to make amends after a prank. Sell the house in Miami, the car, the watch, everything. It's not about the money, Percy. I can feel the tears running down my cheeks. It's about trust. It's about respect. Everything you've trampled on. Abigail takes a step forward, a grimace on her face. What about the baby? She asks, her voice more accusation than plea. You would deprive your grandson of his grandmother because of his parents' mistake? I look at her and see not the future mother of my grandson, but a calculating woman ready to use an unborn child as a tool of manipulation. My grandchild will always be welcome in this house, I answer firmly. When he or she is born, when she is old enough to make her own decisions. Until then, I don't want to see you. Percy takes a step toward me, holding out his hands. Mom, you can't do this. We're family. Family doesn't steal from each other, I reply, stepping back. Family doesn't lie, manipulate, or betray. Woodrow walks to the door, opens it. You heard me. Go away. Abigail is the first to move toward the exit, her face contorting into a mask of cold fury. You're going to regret this, Rosemary, she says, stopping in the doorway. When you're alone in this huge, empty house. When you die alone. I'm never alone, I answer calmly. I have a real family. I look at Woodrow and he nods slightly, understanding without words. Percy hesitates, his face a mixture of despair and anger. You're choosing him over me? Your brother over your son? I choose honesty over betrayal, I replied. And if you ever learn the difference, then maybe we can start talking again. He stands there for a moment, as if hoping for something, then turns and walks away, slamming the door loudly. The silence after they leave feels like a blessing. I slowly walk back to the chair and sit down, feeling a sudden weakness throughout my body. Woodrow locks the front door, walking back into the living room. He sits down across from me, his face a look of concern. Are you all right? No, I answer honestly. But I will be, someday. We sit in silence for a while. It's getting dark outside the window and the garden is falling into twilight. I think of Alistair, of what he would say if he knew what his son had done. My heart aches. He loved Percy so much, was so proud of him. I should have seen the signs, I say at last. All these years, the expensive gifts, the sudden trips, the new things, I just didn't want to notice. Don't blame yourself, Rosie. Woodrow shakes his head. You saw what you wanted to see, what any mother wants to see in her child the best. And you saw the truth from the beginning, I look at my brother gratefully. And you tried to warn me. I saw how he uses your love. Woodrow clenches his fists. How he manipulates you and Alistair. But what could I do? You both loved him so much. I think back to all the times Woodrow tried to open my eyes. His remarks about Percy's irresponsibility, his skepticism about the next grand business idea, his distrust of Abigail. I'd always defended my son, thinking my brother was just too strict, too demanding. How did you uncover their plan? I ask, trying to distract myself from my painful thoughts. Woodrow relaxes a little, telling me. After I noticed the strange transactions, I started watching more closely. I tracked every transfer, every withdrawal. Everything was going into one account, Bucksville Investments. Found the registration papers. Percy Baxter's the sole owner. He gets up, starts pacing the room like he always does when he's nervous. Then he starts going through the paperwork. Found a power of attorney with your signature on it, obviously forged. Started tracking their spending. New house in Miami. Down payment matches a big withdrawal from your account. Abigail's new car, same thing. How did you find out about the will? I remember what Woodrow said about the draft. It was an accident. He stops, looking at me. Remember 3 weeks ago when Percy asked me to help him set up his new laptop? I noticed a file on his desktop, a draft of a will in your name. I read it, and I realized what they were planning. So you decided to take action? I nod. Gather all the evidence. I couldn't let them leave you penniless. Woodrow clenches his fists. Declare you incompetent and take everything you have. I shudder at the thought of what might have happened if Woodrow hadn't intervened. I would have been placed in a nursing home, my house would have been sold, and Percy and Abigail would be living on my money, raising a child I might never have seen. What would happen to the police report? I ask, remembering the document Woodrow showed me at dinner. It's up to you. He sits down next to me. I've prepared it, but I haven't filed it. If you want, we can go to the police. There's all the evidence of fraud and theft. I picture Percy in handcuffs in a courtroom in jail, my son, my only child. Despite all the pain he has caused me, the thought of his imprisonment is unbearable. No, I answer firmly. I will not apply, but the money, they must return it. Woodrow nods without arguing. He understands my feelings, even if he doesn't agree. I'll talk to him. Tomorrow. I'll explain that either he returns every last dime or the report goes to the police. Thank you. I take his hand, feeling deeply grateful. For everything. For protecting me. For always being there for me. Woodrow shrugs awkwardly. He's never been good at accepting gratitude. You're my sister, Rosie, the only real family I have left. I think about the strange irony of fate. All my life I thought my real family was my son, my continuation. Woodrow, on the other hand, was just a brother, a relative with whom I shared blood and a common childhood. I realize now how wrong I was. True family is more than just blood ties. It's loyalty, support, honesty. All the things that Woodrow had shown all his life that Percy lacked. Stay tonight, I ask my brother. I don't want to be alone. Of course, he nods. I'm not going anywhere. We sit in the living room, talking in quiet voices, reminiscing about our childhood, our parents, funny stories from the past. Woodrow talks about his plans for the summer. He wants to build a small workshop in the garden to do wood carving. I talk about my roses, the new varieties I want to plant. An ordinary conversation filled with warmth and understanding. Gradually, the pain of betrayal recedes, replaced by a quiet sadness. I know it will return tomorrow, perhaps even stronger. I know I will have many sleepless nights, many tears. But right now, sitting next to my brother in a house full of memories, I feel strangely calm. You know, I say, looking out the window at the starry sky, Alistair always said that what matters in life is not what happens to us, but how we react to it. Woodrow nods, understanding without further ado. He was a wise man, your Alistair. Yes, I smile through my tears. He was. And he loved Percy, despite his faults. Unconditional love. And so did you. Woodrow looks at me carefully. Even now, I do not deny it. Yes, despite the pain, the betrayal, the broken trust, I still love my son. It's not the same love I had before. Blind, unconditional, willing to forgive anything. It's a more complex, more mature feeling that includes disappointment, anger, and regret. What happens next? Woodrow asks. I don't know, I answer honestly. But whatever happens, I can handle it. He squeezes my hand, and in that gesture is all the support I need right now. Outside the window, night covers Fayetteville in a dark blanket. The stars twinkle above, indifferent to human drama. Somewhere out there, in another house, my son and his wife are suffering the consequences of their betrayal. And I sit here in a house that has witnessed so many moments of my life, joyful and sad. And I realize that no matter how painful today's events are, they will not break me. Tomorrow will be a new day, and I will meet it with open eyes, ready to see the truth, no matter how bitter it may be. The morning began with an unexpected ring at the door. I sat in the kitchen trying to digest the events of the previous evening. Woodrow had left an hour ago. He needed to pick up some things from his house since he had decided to stay with me for a few days. I don't want you to be alone after such a shock, he said, and I was grateful for his concern. The call came again, insistent, demanding. I got up, threw my robe over my nightgown, and went to open the door, already guessing who it might be. Percy was standing on the doorstep. Without Abigail, which surprised me. He looked awful, wrinkled, unshaven, his eyes red from sleep. Mom, his voice sounded hoarse. I need to talk to you. I stepped back silently, letting him into the house. We walked to the kitchen, where I silently placed a cup of coffee in front of him. The habit of hospitality was stronger than resentment. Where's Abigail? I asked, sitting down across from him. At the hotel. Percy put his hands around the cup as if trying to warm himself. We had a fight last night after everything. I didn't look surprised or sympathetic. I just waited to see what he would say next. Mom, I came to apologize, he began without looking up. What I did, it's unforgivable. I understand that. Then why apologize? My voice was steady, unemotional. If you know it's unforgivable? Percy lifted his head. There was a mixture of desperation and calculation in his eyes, a combination I'd seen many times throughout his life. When he'd wrecked his car, when he'd failed his exams, when he'd needed money. Always the same expression. Help me out. I'm confused, Mom, he said, and his voice shook. That money, I was really going to pay it back. I had investment plans that were going to yield good returns. And where are those investments now? I asked. He looked away. Not everything went according to plan. Of course, I grinned bitterly. As always with your grand plans. Percy wrinkled his nose as if in physical pain. I know I disappointed you, Mom. Disappointed Dad. All my life, but I can change. For the baby. Our baby. That's it. A baby as the ultimate bargaining chip, as a way to get me to sympathize, to make me forgive. I expected this. Percy, I looked him straight in the eye. You didn't just disappoint me. You betrayed me. You stole the money my father and I had saved all our lives. Planned to have me declared incompetent so you could take control of all my assets. It was Abigail's idea, he said quickly. I would never. Stop, I held up my hand. Don't humiliate yourself further by shifting the blame onto your wife. You were both in on it. You both planned it. Both of you lied to my face for months. Percy cringed, realizing the old tricks weren't working anymore. What are you going to do? He asked quietly. Woodrow was talking about the police report. I'm not going to file a police report, I replied. I don't want my son and the father of my future grandson in jail. He looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Mom, thank you, But, I interrupted, all the money has to be returned, every dime. Woodrow made an exact list of all the withdrawals from the account. The total amount was $123,400. Percy swallowed. Yeah, I don't have that kind of money right now. The house in Miami, it's down payment only, and the rest is in the mortgage. Sell the house, I said firmly. Sell the car, the watch, everything you bought with my money. Use the rest to get a loan. But then we'd have nothing, he exclaimed. Where will we live with the child? That's not my concern, Percy. You stole the money and it's up to you to get it back. He lowered his head, realizing the hopelessness of the situation. How long have I got? A month, I said. If the money isn't returned in a month, Woodrow will send a report to the police. Percy nodded silently. We sat in silence for a few minutes, then he asked, and then what? When I get the money back, we can start over? I shook my head. No, Percy. Trust is completely broken. I can no longer see you as my son, the boy I raised, the boy I was proud of. You've become a stranger. But the child, your grandson or granddaughter, I told you yesterday, a child will always be welcome in this house, when he or she is old enough to visit on his or her own. Percy looked broken, not the supposed disappointment he usually displayed to get his way, but truly lost. I don't know how to go on living, he whispered. As an adult, I replied without sympathy. As a responsible father, as an honest husband. All the qualities your father and I tried to teach you, but apparently without success. He stood up, staggering as if under the weight of an invisible weight. I'll pay you back, Mom. Forgive me. Even though I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I didn't answer. I watched him walk toward the exit, hunched over, 10 years older than he'd been overnight. Part of me wanted to rush to him, to hug him, to tell him everything would be okay. A maternal instinct, indestructible even after such a betrayal. But I held back. Percy needed to grow up, and only a hard lesson could teach him that. When the door closed behind him, I went back to the kitchen and stared out the window at my garden for a long time. The roses were beginning to open, their delicate petals reaching for the sun. Life went on no matter what. Woodrow returned near noon with a bag of clothes and a bag of groceries. "Thought I'd make lunch," he said as he unloaded the bags. "You look tired, Rosie. Has something happened?" "Percy came by," I said, helping him put the groceries away. "Alone, without Abigail." Woodrow tensed. What did he want? To apologize, justify himself, blame it on Abigail, the usual. "And did you?" "I told her I expect all the money back within a month, or we go to the police." Woodrow nodded, clearly pleased with my firmness. "That's right. I'll talk to him tonight, explain the details. He's got to realize we're not kidding." We worked side by side in the kitchen. He was chopping vegetables for the salad. I was making the pasta sauce. The simple, familiar activities were soothing, bringing back a sense of normalcy. "You know," Woodrow said, stirring the sauce, "I've been thinking all night about what happened. I've come to the conclusion that you should reconsider your will." I froze with my spoon in my hand. "Will?" "Yes." He turned to me. "Everything you own is in Percy's will now, isn't it?" I nodded. After Alistair's death, it seemed natural to leave everything to our only son. "Given what's happened," Woodrow went on, "there are other options to consider. I'm not saying take everything away from him, but maybe restrict his access to money. Or," he hesitated, "or what? Or think about charities," he finished. "There are many worthy organizations that help the elderly, those who don't have as much support as you do." I thought about it. It wasn't a new idea. I'd thought about leaving some of my money to charity before, but I'd always stopped, thinking I had to provide for Percy's future. Now, "It's a good idea," I said at last. "I'll think about it." We dined in silence, each of us absorbed in his own thoughts. After lunch, Woodrow went to the garage to meet Percy to discuss the details of the refund. I took out of my desk drawer the file containing my will, written 10 years ago, just after Alistair's death. Rereading it, I realized how outdated it was, not only in a legal sense, but in fact. I was leaving all my possessions to a man I thought I knew, a man who was capable of betrayal and deceit. The decision came suddenly but firmly. I picked up the phone and dialed the number of Gerda Patterson, an old family friend and the attorney who had drafted the previous will. "Gerda, this is Rosemary Baxter. I need your help with the new will." 2 days later, I was sitting in Gerda's office signing the new papers. According to them, the house remained to Percy. I couldn't deprive him of the place where he'd grown up, where the memories of his father were kept. But the financial asset savings, stocks, insurance were divided differently. 30% went into a trust for a future grandson or granddaughter, with the stipulation that the money would not be available until he or she reached the age of 21. 10% to Percy, not in a lump sum, but in monthly installments for 10 years after my death. And 60% to the Fayetteville Senior Citizens Foundation, a charitable organization that helps lonely old people. "Are you sure?" Gerda asked as I signed the last document. "This is a pretty drastic change." "Absolutely," I replied. "Life is too short to waste it on people who don't appreciate your love and trust." Coming home, I felt strangely relieved. It was as if the weight I'd been carrying for years, the weight of responsibility for Percy, for his future, was finally lifted from my shoulders. I was no longer obliged to provide for his welfare. He was a grown man who should be responsible for his own actions. Woodrow was waiting for me with news he'd met with Percy and Abigail and discussed the repayment plan in detail. The house in Miami was for sale, the car was for sale. The watch has been pawned. They realize they have no choice, he said, pouring tea. Either they return the money or they go to trial. "What about the baby?" I asked, unable to shake the worry about my grandchild's future. "Abigail is healthy and the pregnancy is fine," Woodrow answered dryly. "They were planning to move into a smaller apartment while they sorted out their finances." I nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. Despite everything, I didn't want my grandson or granddaughter to suffer because of my parents' actions. "I've changed my will," I said, sipping my tea. "Most of the money will go to charity, a fund to help the elderly." Woodrow raised his eyebrows, but didn't look surprised. Good decision, Rosie. You always know how to do the right thing, even when it's hard. And a trust fund for the baby, I added. With access at 21, so Percy and Abigail can't get to it. Wise, my brother nodded. And Percy? 10% in monthly installments for 10 years, I answered. So he can't spend it all at once. Woodrow smiled, a rare expression for his usually serious face. You think of everything. I try. I looked out the window at the roses, which were now fully open. You know, it's strange, but I feel free. For the first time in a long time. We sat in silence, enjoying a moment of peace after the storm of the last few days. Then I asked, do you think I'm doing the right thing? With the will? With the money? With all this? Woodrow looked at me for a long moment. Rosie, you've always been the strongest person I know. Even when you seemed soft and compliant, there was a will of steel inside. You do what you think is right, and that's enough. I smiled, feeling warmed by his words. In my 74 years, life had taught me a hard lesson about trust and betrayal. But it had also given me an understanding of true family, the kind that supports you in times of need, even when blood ties are weaker than paper. The phone rang, interrupting our conversation. It was Abigail, her voice sounding unusually humble. Rosemary, it's me. I'd like to see you to talk. Explain my side of the story. I paused, weighing the pros and cons. I don't think that's a good idea, Abigail. Please. I could hear the desperation in her voice. For the sake of the child, your grandson or granddaughter, another child as a tool of manipulation. I sighed, feeling tired of these games. Abigail, I've already told Percy and I'll tell you again. The child will always be welcome in my home. I have already secured his future with a trust fund, but it's over between us. Your betrayal is too deep to be undone by apologies or excuses. Silence on the other end of the line, then a sharp intake of breath. You're going, including a report from 3 independent doctors that I'm in perfect mental health. But thank you for showing your true colors again. It only makes me feel better about my decision. I hung up the phone, feeling strangely satisfied. Abigail had unmasked her greedy, calculating face, and I finally found the strength to confront it. Woodrow looked at me with unconcealed admiration. You've changed, Rosie, stronger, more determined. No, I shook my head. I've always been like this. I just let myself forget it, wallowing in the role of the forgiving mother. I walked to the window, looking out at my beautiful garden, the one Alistair and I had spent decades creating. At the house full of memories, the life my own family tried to take from me. You know what the ironic thing is? I said without turning around. If Percy had just asked for money for a house, for a car, for anything, I would have given it. No questions, no strings attached, because I loved him. But he chose to lie and steal. Some people don't appreciate what they get too easily, Woodrow replied. Percy had always been like that. He needed to make things difficult, to find workarounds even when the straight road was open. I nodded, realizing that my brother was right. We spent the rest of the evening discussing plans for the future. My future without the strain of my relationship with my son. Woodrow suggested some ideas for the garden, and I talked about the art classes I'd always wanted to take, but had been putting off because of family obligations. Before I went to bed, I stood at the mirror for a long time, scrutinizing my reflection. Wrinkles, gray hair, the traces of years gone by. But my eyes, they shone with new life, new determination. At 74, I was starting a new chapter in my story, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. Autumn in Fayetteville was surprisingly warm and bright. The maple leaves burned orange and scarlet, creating a picturesque contrast to the blue October sky. It had been 4 months since that fateful evening when my life was turned upside down. 4 months that have changed me more than the previous decades. Sitting on a garden bench, I watched Woodrow install a bird feeder, his latest creation from the workshop he'd built in the far corner of the property. My brother moved in with me in August, after much conversation and deliberation. Your house is too big for one person and my apartment is too small for two, he joked. But we both understood the real reasons. We were good together, 2 older people who found comfort in each other's company. Do you think the tits will appreciate my creation? Woodrow took a step back, critically examining the feeder. which was a miniature replica of our house. They'll love it, I smiled. Especially if you fill it with that special food we bought at the garden center. Woodrow nodded, pulled a bag from his pocket, and began filling the feeder. I watched his confident, methodical movements, feeling the warmth of gratitude. My brother had become my support, my anchor in a stormy sea of change. The money Percy had stolen was returned in full 3 weeks after our ultimatum. My son sold the house in Miami, the car, the watch, and other expensive items. He took out the balance on a loan, which he assured me the last time we met that he would be paying back for years. I haven't seen much of Percy since. He'd called several times, first with apologies, then with news of Abigail's pregnancy. The last time, he informed me that they were having a girl. I congratulated him, but the conversation remained formal, strained. There was a gulf between us that could not be bridged by words or time. I didn't see Abigail at all. We had not spoken since her attempt to threaten me with contesting the will. Woodrow had heard from mutual acquaintances that she often complained of a hard-hearted mother-in-law who had abandoned them in their time of need. I was no longer hurt by these words. I knew the truth, and that was enough. Done. Woodrow hung the feeder on the branch of an old maple tree. Now we wait for the guests. They'll come. I got up from the bench. Shall we go inside? It's getting chilly, and I need to get ready for tomorrow's meeting. We entered the house, which smelled of freshly baked apple pie. After all the turmoil, I had discovered a love of cooking. The process of creating something with my own hands was soothing and gave me a sense of control over my life. Nervous? Woodrow asked, pouring tea. A little, I admitted. After all, this is the first official meeting of our group. Our group was what I called the small community of seniors I'd founded 2 months ago. Silver Voices is a support group for seniors facing family conflict, manipulation, or financial abuse. The idea came to me after talking to Gerda Patterson, my attorney, who told me that cases like mine are unfortunately not uncommon. Many older people are victimized by their own children or grandchildren, she said at the time, and most remain silent out of shame or fear of loneliness. I didn't stay silent. I first shared my story in the local newspaper, anonymously, but in enough detail that others could recognize my situation. There were more responses than I expected. Dozens of letters from people who had experienced similar betrayals, from those who were still in toxic relationships and didn't know how to break free. That's how Silver Voices was born. We began meeting in the library. First 5, then 10, now 15 people. Tomorrow was the first official meeting at the community center with an invited lawyer and psychologist. A small initiative was turning into something meaningful. You can do this, Woodrow said confidently, handing me a cup of tea. You have a talent for helping people find their power. I smiled, accepting the compliment. Before, I would have brushed it off, downplayed my merits. Now I was learning to accept recognition of my merits. What would I do without you, Woodrow? Find another boar to build you a trough, he grinned. You're stronger than you think, Rosie. Always have been. In the evening, I went over my notes for tomorrow's speech. The words came easily to paper, as if I'd spent years preparing to say them. Perhaps I had, years of accumulating wisdom that I could now share. Trust, I wrote, is the most precious gift we can give another person, and the most painful loss when that gift is rejected. But even in that pain, there is a lesson and an opportunity for growth. A phone call interrupts my musings. The number was unfamiliar, but something told me to answer it. Hello? Mrs. Baxter? A woman's voice, uncertain, trembling. I read your story in the paper. Can I talk to you? I straightened up, instantly shifting into the role of a supportive listener. Sure. What's your name? Eleanor Pierce, she answered. I'm 78 and my grandson. He took all my savings, said he was going to invest it in a business. That was 2 years ago and I still haven't seen a dime. A story so similar to mine and yet unique in its pain. I listened to Eleanor for almost an hour, asking questions, suggesting options, just letting her talk, perhaps for the first time in a long time. Come to our meeting tomorrow, I said at the end of the conversation. You are not alone, Eleanor. There are many of us, and together we are stronger. After the call, I sat for a long time looking out the window at the darkening garden. Moments like that, when I could reach out to someone in a similar situation, gave a sense of purpose. of meaning. Out of painful experience was born something useful, something needed. Woodrow peered into the room with a cup of hot cocoa. "Another call?" he asked, setting the cup down beside me. "Yes," I nodded. "Eleanor Pierce, 78 years old. Her grandson stole all her savings." Woodrow shook his head. "It's amazing how many stories like that there are. And most never get out. That's why our group is so important." I took a sip of cocoa. "To let people know they're not alone, that there's a way out." The next morning was hectic. I changed my outfit twice, not knowing what would be best for my first official performance. I finally settled on a dark blue suit and pearl earrings, Alistair's gift for our 30th anniversary. "You look great," Woodrow said when I came down to breakfast. "Like a real leader." "A leader," I shook my head. "I never thought I'd be starting a new career at 74. "It's not a career, Rosie," my brother argued. "It's a calling. It's what you've always been able to do, support others. Give them strength when they lose it." Maybe he's right. All my life I've been a pillar, first for my parents, then for my husband, for my son. Even when that support was rejected, the ability to support stayed with me. The Fayetteville Community Center was housed in an old brick building downtown. When Woodrow and I arrived, the auditorium was already nearly full. Not only members of our group, but new faces, men and women mostly elderly, with attentive, often wary eyes. Gerda Patterson, my attorney and longtime friend, met us at the entrance. "Rosemary, it's amazing," she said as she looked around the room. "Look how many people showed up." The newspaper sent a reporter, and even the television was interested. I took a deep breath, feeling the excitement build. It was more than I'd expected. Not just a support group, the beginning of a movement, a voice for those who had been silent for too long. When it was time to speak, I climbed up on the small stage, looking around the room. So many eyes, so many stories, so much pain and hope. My prepared words suddenly seemed insufficient, formal. I put aside my notes and spoke from the heart. 4 months ago, I was sitting at my dining room table when I heard my only son confess that he had stolen my money. I began without preamble. He laughed, thinking it was a funny joke. His wife was smiling. They were planning my life, or rather my old age, without my knowledge or consent. The hall grew quiet. I saw many nodding, recognizing in my story their own pain. I could forgive, as I had done so many times before. I could pretend that nothing had happened. I could have continued to live in an illusionary world where my family loved and respected me. But I chose a different path. I chose the truth, no matter how bitter it was. I told my story, honestly, unadorned, without hiding my pain, my anger, or my moments of weakness. And I ended with what I found as a result: a new purpose, a new strength, a new understanding of myself. "We are not here to complain or blame," I said, looking into the eyes of those present. "We are here to find the strength to change what can be changed, to accept what cannot be changed, and to gain the wisdom to distinguish one from the other." After the presentation, people came up to me, shaking my hand, thanking me, telling me their stories. Among them was Eleanor Pierce, a small, frail woman with a determined look. "You gave me hope," she said. "For the first time in 2 years, I felt I was not alone in this struggle." Woodrow and I returned home late that night, tired but encouraged. The meeting exceeded all expectations. It was decided to hold meetings weekly, create informational booklets, and open a hotline for seniors facing financial or psychological abuse. "I'm proud of you, Rosie," Woodrow said as we sat on the veranda enjoying the warm fall evening. "You've turned your pain into a strength that helps others." I smiled, looking up at the starry sky. Life is wonderfully unpredictable. 4 months ago, I felt betrayed, broken, lost. Today, I sat here full of new plans and ideas with a sense of purpose and direction. The next morning, looking through the newspaper at breakfast, I came across an article about our meeting yesterday. "Silver Voices Shatter Silence," read the headline. The article quoted my words and described an atmosphere of support and determination. At the end was a phone number for those who wanted to join the group. "Your initiative is gaining momentum," Woodrow said, reading over my shoulder. "Soon you won't have time for those wonderful apple fritters." I laughed, slipping him another pancake. "There's always time for the important things." The ringing of the phone interrupted our breakfast. Percy's number. I paused for a second before answering. Good morning, Percy. Mom. His voice sounded strained. I read the article in the paper about your band. What did you think? I asked neutrally. Yeah, I didn't know you were doing this, he stammered. It's, impressive. Thank you. I waited, sensing he wanted to say something else. I was thinking, maybe we should get together. Talk. Abigail's 7 months pregnant, your granddaughter's due soon? An old pain stirred somewhere deep inside, but not as sharp as before. Time doesn't heal, but it teaches you to live with loss. Percy, I've told you before, and my position hasn't changed. When the child is born, I'd love to meet my granddaughter, but it's over between us. Too many lies, too much betrayal. But you're helping strangers start a new life. He sounded resentful. Why can't you give your own son a chance? Because strangers, as you call them, recognize their mistakes and really want to change, I answered calmly. And you still see yourself as a victim of circumstance. I read the article. I'm glad. I waited for it to continue, but Percy was silent. Was that it? I finally asked. Yes, his voice sounded muffled. Goodbye, Mother. Goodbye, Percy. I hung up the phone feeling strangely calm. Before, a conversation like this would have left me in tears, with guilt and doubt. Now I was accepting it as a necessary part of my new path. Woodrow looked at me questioningly. Is everything all right? Yes. I nodded. Percy read the article. He wanted to meet. And you? I said the same thing I said before. Nothing's changed, Woodrow. He still doesn't realize what he's done. My brother nodded, not hiding his relief. He was always afraid I'd fall for his son's manipulations, fall back into a toxic relationship. I have a lot to do today, I said, getting up from the table. I have to prepare materials for the next group meeting, and then I promised Eleanor I'd help her prepare the paperwork for the police. Woodrow smiled. And remember how 4 months ago you said you didn't know how to move on with your life? I smiled back. Life always finds a way if you are open to change. Stepping out into the garden, I paused for a moment, watching the birds that had taken up residence at Woodrow's feeder. Brightly colored tits bustled about, hopping from branch to branch, filling the morning with their chirping. 4 months ago, I thought my life was over, that without my son's love, it was meaningless. Today, I realized how wrong I was. Life does not end with loss, even such a painful loss as betrayal by loved ones. It transforms, opens up new facets, new possibilities. I was no longer just a mother, just a widow, just an old woman living out her days. I was Rosemary Baxter, founder of Silver Voices, an advocate for the rights of the elderly, a woman who had found a new purpose in life. And if the price of that transformation was the loss of a toxic relationship with a son who saw me only as a source of money, well, I was willing to pay it. With that thought in mind, I went back to the house, to my business, to my new life. A life where there was no room for regrets about the past or fear of the future. Only the present, full of meaning, purpose, and quiet, deep satisfaction.